Tyler Boyd and his personality back in the building.
Yeah, it's good to see TB. So to have him back in here and be around the guys, see some of those new receivers, see him in action, I think is a good thing for us.
You looked a little surprised to see him. Were you surprised?
I had forgotten that today was the day he was coming back. So I'd been made aware last week, and I think I talked to him last Thursday, and then just forgot. I didn't check in on the receiver meeting this morning, so I didn't see him in there. So he got on me quick.
He talked at length in there about how much this place means to him, how much this city means to him. We know this is an important year for him personally. Your thoughts on him having that attitude at this stage?
He's been about what we want to be about, every step of the way. When this staff really came in here in 2019, he's one of those guys that through thick and thin, we're always whatever you need from me, coach. Always been a great leader in the locker room. Always been someone I've been able to go to and know that I'm going to get a truthful response back on how things are going. And so, again, he's one thing we preach to all of our guys, especially our new guys, is we want guys that are consistent every day they walk in the building. We know what we're going to expect. TB fits that to a T. He's the same guy every single day. He's always a great attitude. And I think that's key to building the culture the way we wanted it and the way we want this team is guys like that type of personality. And we sent him and Jesse Bates out there for the coin toss at Buffalo last year because those were two guys that I felt like had really fit that description aside from, Sam Hubbard, who was a captain, and some other guys who'd been here for a number of years. I think that those guys personify what we want to be about.
Why is somebody like TB able to handle his business off the field and not let it distract what he needs to do in the locker room and on the field?
That's part of learning through your experience in the NFL. I didn't get TB his first years in the league. I don't know how he was those first 2 years. I got him year 3 and beyond, and you see a guy that had started to figure it out by then, and understood what it means to be a pro and how certain guys survive. All guys have talent, but certain guys have to fit what the expectations are in the locker room and the meeting rooms and the consistency over the course of the season. And TB has done that since I've known him and been around him. And I think he's a good example for other guys to kind of learn, what type of guys survive in this league.
TB was talking about the AFC Championship game and him not being in there. He said, he had some good looks, had some good one-on-one matches, good leverages. As a play caller, how much did you have to adjust when the second he went out, given the way that they seem to be defending on the outside? Yeah,
it's a challenge, it's hard when guys get beat up like that, and they were doubling a lot on the guys outside with T and Jamar, and so that's just we feel like we got a lot of good playmakers on this team, and guys stepped up and made plays, and that's just the way it goes.
Jamar and T in the past have talked about how Tyler, their rookie year, was a really big help getting them used to the NFL, and then he was asked about Charlie today. How much can you see as a coach when a veteran like Tyler is helping out those younger guys? Can you see a difference in practice and what they're doing?
I just know that TB is very unselfish, and he's got no ego. And so there's no one on this team that he wouldn't help, put his arm around and make sure they understand the way that we do things, even if it takes a rep away from him. That he's just the type of guy that just wants the best for this team. He wants to help us win championships, division titles. Very unselfish, and so I think that he's a great mentor to a lot of these young players that we have.
How important is this time for a guy like Trevor Siemian?
It's good for him. He's heard these types of play calls. He's run these routes before. It's just putting it all together with how we say it and with the personnel that we have, I think is really the adjustment that I think he's fit in really well and doing a good job getting in there and getting reps. It comes to him very quickly. Again, it's just more of a terminology aspect and just getting used to the personnel that we have.
Are you seeing, as an offensive play caller, are you seeing more teams try to bring more pressure with just 4 and try to drop as many as they can? I mean, how have the trends kind of been over the last few years of quarterbacks and offense have developed with how many guys they're bringing to the box?
It totally depends on the defense, and how their personnel is built and what their coordinator's identity is. And it just depends on the team we play. They're a team that maybe just rushes forward and doesn't pressure as much because they feel good about their back end or their front four. guys that, will bring 5 or 0 you, guys that will bring the replacement fire zones like we saw from Atlanta, where they're still only rushing 4, but it's a DN dropping and a backer coming or a nickel coming. And so we face a variety of that every single week. I can't say that there's a trend that I feel more than the other. It's based on the personnel we're facing matched with the defensive play caller matched with maybe the personnel they have on offense leads them to that identity they have. And then maybe some teams play us different. And so some teams determine they want to blitz us. Some teams determine they don't. So I can't say that there's a general trend that we see. It's just based on team to team.
Drafting a guy like Miles and being able to have him as kind of a rotational guy early, is that maybe beneficial for in games to get deeper in the season, fourth quarters, high leverage situations that maybe guys like Trey, Sam, Joseph, they're fresher in key moments? How much of that maybe was in the equation when you went through the draft?
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to have enough guys that can play up front. They can play together as well. You can get to third down situations and find packages where they're all three. It's not giving guys a break necessarily. It's getting as many on there on the field as you can. So I think it's good to have as many guys that can affect the quarterback and play up front as possible.
How's Cheeto coming along in his progress in his rehab?
Yeah, right on pace.
Joe mentioned recently Herb Smith Jr.'s going the extra mile, coaches, watching film. Your early impressions of your new tight end?
Yeah, very aware, has an understanding of what we want to do and how we want to use him. He's been all in since he walked in the door here. And so just, as we're getting to know Irv, I think it's been good to get him on the field, and he's got a good understanding of how we're planning to utilize him. And so then, the next step is just training camp, getting in there and getting to compete against the defense.
Coach, a couple weeks ago, LC told us how much progress he had made. I think a lot of us were finding it hard to believe until we've seen him out there putting in the work the last few weeks. How promising is that for you, seeing where he's at before training camp?
Yeah, I think that's what's great about the rehab process with all of our guys. We got a lot of faith in our department that handles that, and those guys are making the progress that's needed. I do want to give a shout out to Roberto. He's doing just fine. He's in the trending video on Twitter against LC, one of our trainers. And so Roberto's doing just great. He's in great spirits about it, and he's fully healthy right now.
Zach, how have you liked the tone of the offseason work? Because I'm sure you would have a thought in your head of what you want this to look like, play out, how you like it so far.
Sure. The concern when you have the style of offseason that we have is that guys go through the motions because it's not physically as taxing as if you're doing full speed work, 11-on-11 stuff. So I'm really proud of the way that our guys have handled it. They understand this style of practice demands great responsibility and attention to detail, to be able to do things on air, do things defense versus defense. Again, the things that I pay the most attention to, I spend a lot of time watching the huddle. I watch the defensive guys bring it up and their interactions with each other and calling the plays in the huddle and urgency to get lined up. Same thing on offense that, TB walks in the huddle the first time today. And so there's a group of 11 there that hadn't been together before. Orlando's a new offensive lineman that's in there. TB jumps in there as the receiver. He hasn't been there. Irv is in there. So it's just good to see the camaraderie and those guys start to come together. And that's, I think, what's so important in the offseason is developing that chemistry, integrating new players, rookies and free agents. And then there's tweaks that we make on both sides of the ball, really all three phases. And I think our guys have really had great attention to detail on some of the new stuff that we're doing on air. And then we get a chance next week when OTAs start to do it more in a walkthrough setting against the other side of the ball. And these guys will be ready to hit the ground running once training camp rolls around and feel like they've really mastered it as much as they can, just the technique aspect of things before they have to go really put on the pads and compete.
The tempo that you guys practice at, even though there's no pads or anything, is a pretty significant tempo. When guys come in as rookies or from other teams, how do you notice that it takes them any period of time to adjust to what you're doing? Is it pretty fluid?
I think it's been pretty fluid. I think that's what this allows you to do is those guys feel comfortable before they're asked to go out there and line up with a guy over their head and do the techniques we're asking them to do and run the plays and line up in the splits and make the adjustments on defense and things like that. So I think it's conducive to helping those guys understand it very quickly.
How much do you expect the players to do on their own, film study, classroom work, what have you, to complement what you're doing on the field at this time of the offseason?
Yeah, it's the coach's job and some of the veterans' job to teach how we want it done. Once you get into the season, and you do expect once you've taught it once that somebody returns the next day and they've got it, whether that meant it really made sense to them at the time that they heard it or they need to spend extra time in the hotel or at their house. studying it a couple more times to make sure it makes sense to them. And so guys to learn different ways. Some guys need to get on the field first before it really hits home for them. And so I think that we're able to hit all those different ways of doing things, watching the film, showing them a playbook, doing it on the field. And so it's really up to the player to which way sinks in the most. And then and our position coaches understand how to reach each player the best. But it's on them to make sure it's really locked in, however they do that on their own at home before they show up the next day for work.
Would you say it's safe to say that it's how smart you work at this time of the off season as opposed to how hard you work?
I think smart's a good way to do it. We want our guys to go into the summer feeling really healthy, feeling good about themselves so they can come and compete at the highest once training camp opens up. I think that's one objective that I personally have for our team when they walk out the door on June 15th, that they feel in peak physical condition, that they can utilize those next 4 or 5 weeks to make sure that when they show up to training camp, they're hitting the ground running and not feeling like they've developed a new injury or anything like that. I learned that really after my first offseason here, talking to several of our veteran players that I had a lot of respect for, that maybe felt banged up coming out of spring. Not banged up that, we're hitting, obviously there's no contact, there's only helmets on, but some of the 11-on-11 stuff we did, they felt not as good as they wanted to coming into training camp. And so you take that to heart and you reconfigure your training camp a little bit to make sure we're getting all that physical work. And I feel like we've arrived at a really good point now to where our guys understand why we do things the way we do them, what's going to be asked of them when they show back up in late July, and how to get our team ready for our first game of the season, against Cleveland.
Could you ever see going back? I mean, is it individually each year, like you take the temperature of how many veterans, rookies, things like that?
Yeah, I think every year will be a new year with where our roster's at and what we feel like, what kind of work we need to get done. Certainly, we could be capable of doing more in the future if we got a different style of team. I think right now we've got a lot of experience here of guys that can help incorporate some of these newer players we have, and we can do things the way we're doing them and be ready in training camp to get ourselves ready for that first game.
Zach, what's your reaction to the fair catch rule? How do you best prepare for that? And you got a lot of new pieces on the kick team. Yeah. How do you decide what the best strategy is with that change?
I think that'll be a work in progress. That'll be something we continue to talk through with Darren. So again, we've kicked around a lot of different scenarios that can pop up. I won't get them all into here, but it will change. Kickoff and kickoff return. I think early on teams may treat it differently. We'll see. It'll be interesting to watch these first couple weeks how it goes. But we'll develop a good plan that we believe in and helps put our team in the best position.
Any discussions for joint practices during training camp, or are y'all probably just going to be here? How's that going to go?
No, we play Green Bay the first preseason game, so they'll come here for a day.
You talk about sort of, guys feeling good about themselves going into training camp. You guys have had near perfect attendance, like, voluntary workouts. Like that camaraderie, how nice has that been seeing that this offseason, and how really important is that beyond just like having peak physical shape?
I think it's critical. I think guys got to get along. Guys got to know how to push each other. Guys got to know how to help each other. Guys, they don't have to love each other necessarily. You got a lot of people in the locker room. I know how that goes, but you got to respect the work that everyone's putting in, and I think that our guys do that. And they understand that when you come play for the Cincinnati Bengals, you're playing to win a division title, and you're playing to go win a championship. And so that's what everybody in this locker room understands. And the new guys, we make sure that they understand that very quickly in our team meetings. And guys have really bought into that and are unselfishly pursuing all those goals.
What do you think of BJ Hill's haircut?
I think it looks great. I think it looks really good. I'll just leave it at that.
With the Green Bay thing, because the game's Friday, right? So then Thursday will be an off day and you do one day of joint practices on Wednesday?
That's correct. Yep.
Is it kind of a similar thing where it's that relationship with Matt that you have that you wouldn't just do that with anybody?
Yes. Yes. I feel good about how we'll practice together and the communication with the other team's coaching staff. And there's a lot of guys on that staff. Joe Barry, a lot of guys that I've worked with before. And so feel good about that, doing that for a day.
Last year didn't sour you at all?
No. Last year's last year. But this year we're only doing one day.
You mentioned that TV gave you a heads up and you just forgot the date. Have you heard anything from Jonah's camp about when he might show?
We'll just take it day to day with him.
Zach, with Joe Mixon, we asked a lot of questions about his future at Cincinnati, at the Combine, even on draft weekend we were asking you questions about it. I'm sure, in 2023, Joe hears that stuff. he's a mature guy, he's been around a long time. Do you have to have conversations with him to make him comfortable about his positioning here in Cincinnati, or just rely on his general professionalism?
I think we've got a great relationship with Joe. I've appreciated how he's coming to the building every single day and just worked hard, and that's a big reason why we gave him the contract we gave him. His presence with the team, and so again, he's a guy that I enjoy being around, and we're counting on him.